When's the last time you took responsibility over everything in your life? That's a heavy one, right? But it's one to really take time to reflect and consider. Many times people relate fault with responsibility. Think, who's responsible for this? But some things weren't your fault. Some things happened when you were a kid. Some events blindsided you and knocked you down. And the universal response is always telling you to just move on. But how do you do that? Today, I'll help you reclaim your power. It's something you don't have to tell others or proclaim to the world. It's just something that you have to do for no one other than you. You can check out today's video on YouTube. And if you like the sales life, consider subscribing to both the podcast and the YouTube channel. You're listening to The Sales Life, one of the top 5% podcasts in the world. And I'm your host, Marsh, Buice. The Sales Life is for those who are either looking to move up or trying to get back up. Either way, you're going to have to use the life skills of selling. And there's 5 core skills that you have to develop. The first one's communication. And you got to communicate not only to yourself, but also to the world. What is it that you want? The second one's going to take curiosity. You got to ask questions and don't live in assumptive statements. The next one's creativity. When you lack resources, you got to be resourceful. And then there's confrontation. Probably the most important out of all the 5, because you're going to have to confront some things in your life, but in a productive way. And if you want to have more, do more, be more, then say no more. Let's roll out with today's episode. It may not be your fault, but it is your responsibility.
I was reading yesterday Mark Metry's book, Screw Being Shy. I read a passage in his book, and it just rocked me. When's the last time you took responsibility over every single thing that's happened in your life? When's the last time you took responsibility over everything, the good and the bad, that's happened in your life? And Metry goes on to write, many times when people hear the word responsibility, they instantly equate it with fault. Who's responsible for this, right? But responsibility and fault are 2 separate issues. See, it's not your fault that your parents got divorced. It's not your fault that your dad went to jail at age 9. It's not your fault that your brother died 5 years ago. It's not your fault that the company forced you to take an early retirement. It's not your fault that you were molested. But it is your responsibility. Because you're responsible for who you are today over that event. See, when you break the word responsible down, it's response able. It's the ability to make a decision and choose to act. And many times you feel powerless in life. And the reason why you feel powerless is because you always go back to that event. And if you want to reclaim your power, you've got to claim responsibility over it. It may not have been your fault, but it is your responsibility. Because, see, when you claim responsibility, well, now that I have my power back, I have the ability to choose my response. And see, now that I've taken responsibility over my life, now I have the power to change the things that are in my life. And sadly, most people never get this far. Because they look at responsibility and fault as the same thing. And they say, it's not my fault. It was the fault of this other person. This is the event that happened. Yeah, it's not your fault. But if you can take responsibility over, and I become the person who I am today because I'm responsible over it, not for it, over it, I get my power back. And I get to choose and shape what happens for my life from here. Don't associate fault with responsibility. Because many times we release ourselves of the responsibility because all we want to do is we want to lay blame. We always want to get back, right? We want to go back to that situation. You can't. And so when you blame, when you constantly look at fault over whatever the circumstances were, over whether it's a person, whether it's a company, whether, it's an event, whatever. If you're always doing that, then you're releasing yourself of responsibility. And then you become detached from the responsibility of your life. How can you blame something that's not in your control? How can you change something that's not in your control? I can't change that other person. I can't change what that decision was made by that company. I can't change that. But I can claim responsibility over my life. Because see, now I'm able to respond and make a decision and act. And so many times, man, when things happen in our lives, people tell you to get over it, right? Get over it, man, get over it. That's hard to do. It's hard to get over certain events that rocked us. But you can distance yourself from it if I take responsibility from there. I got it from here. And the only way I'll get it from here and take it from here is taking responsibility over it. My life got worse and worse and worse and worse because I didn't take responsibility over my life. And it's so much easier to just blame, to explain, to excuse, than to take responsibility and say, I'm able to respond. I'm able to reclaim my power. And if I can do that, then I can change situations in my life. And it's not to diminish some of the events that happened in our life. It's not to diminish that they weren't horrific. They were. But many times we get stuck. And we get stuck, man, because what we're trying to do is now that we're a little older, we are a little wiser, we go back to those situations where we were powerless. I was just a kid. And we want to go back. And now that we have a little power, we want to go back and change that situation. We want to right all the wrongs. And you can't. I can't get those situations back. I have no power over the past, but I do have and claim responsibility over and for my future. See, if you take responsibility over your life now, 5 years from now, you may not even recognize your life. And there were some things, man, that weren't your fault. And there were other things that were your fault. There are many things as an adult that were my fault. And to replay those things over and over again, bad decisions, terrible decisions. And they were my fault. But today they're my responsibility. And I can't change what's already been done. But I can claim responsibility in who I become over that event. See, just because things happen in your life does not mean that's the rest of your track for your life. It's not. And the only way you're going to start pivoting, the only way that you're going to start changing, is responsibility. Not trying to break it all down, not trying to get all bogged down in the weeds, none of that, man. It's just the responsibility from here. It's a tough pill to swallow, man, sometimes. Especially when people try to bring it back up. Whether it's your fault or things that were outside of your control. Especially when your mind tries to bring you back to those things. You got to instantly just clip it off. And you got to say, I take responsibility over everything in my life. And that way you can start making some traction. Because many times the fault is the footing. Because you get stuck in fault, you can't get your traction, you can't get your footing back. You can get your traction. You can make that divot where you can put your foot in it and push off. But it has everything to do with responsibility. So let's roll out with the TSL action item of today. What fault will you now take responsibility over? Because remember, some things weren't your fault, but now they're your responsibility. And then number 2, set the contract and set it small. You may want to do, I don't know, you may want to do 2 years from now. That's too long for me. But maybe if I do a 30 or 60 or 90-day contract with myself, I claim responsibility today. And for 90 days, or 60 days, or 30 days, this is what I'm going to do from here. And that way I can push forward and not fall back. So name your 30 or 60 or 90 day mark. This is what it is. I take responsibility over my life for everything, the good and the bad. And this time I'm going to rock out from there.
Hey, that's all the time that we have today. Thank you so much for listening. This may be the end of the episode, but it's not the end of the road. To learn more on how to never settle and sell your way through life, head over to marshbuice.com. That's MARSHBUICE, like juice with a B in front. There you will find thousands of free resources from videos to blogs and, of course, many podcast episodes. If you like the Sales Life, consider subscribing to both the podcast and the YouTube channel. And if you love the Sales Life, head over to your favorite app or right there on the website and leave a rating or review. The stars show your appreciation, but your words in the review, that shows your support. A very special thank you to Mike, the car guy, for leaving this week's review. Remember, the greatest sale that you will ever make is to sell you on you, because you're more than enough. Stay amazing. Stay in the Sales Life.